Alright, so this is Starship launch number 6. Didn't quite get everything that I wanted to see. I was really hoping to see another catch, but it was fun nonetheless, and this time I got my youngest son, Steven, on the line with me. That was a lot of fun. So you hear a little bit of that interaction here and there.
Hey, are you on,
Let's
Steven?
watch.
Hello.
Hey!
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh. I have no idea how to even do any of that stuff
Really?
in OBS.
You're the one that introduced me to all this stuff.
I haven't used OBS in a long time.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
These are two screens, so I can record this with me down here while I'm seeing it on my two big screens here. So, do you have two screens? I think you do, don't you?
No.
Oh, okay.
I did when I just used my laptop. But I tried using my laptop as a monitor, but it doesn't work very well.
Okay.
So the only option for that's doing it wirelessly.
Aha.
And so there's
Good afternoon
Some
and
kind of
welcome to the 6th
input
flight
delay.
of Starship. It is currently
use it.
3:25 p.m. Central Time
Now,
at
these guys,
Starbase,
of course, have
Texas,
the best
and it has
views.
been just 40 days since our last launch
40
of the
days.
world's biggest rocket. We're targeting our first afternoon Starship liftoff just 34 minutes from now, and that will occur at 4 p.m. Central Time. Now, this timing will bring us daylight views of the ship splashing down on the other side of the world. I'm Kate Tice,
It's
Senior Quality
bananas.
Systems Engineering Manager
So
here
what
at
is that
SpaceX.
about?
And I'm Jesse Anderson, a Senior Structures Engineering Manager, and we are joining you live from SpaceX Hawthorne.
These are some
On
pretty
Flight
smart
5,
girls.
we promised you maximum excitement, and Starship delivered in what had to be
Imagine,
one of
yeah.
the most memorable moments in my time here at SpaceX.
Same.
Like so many of you, we were in utter shock as we watched that historic booster catch unfold, and we're back today to try and do it all over again. As Kate mentioned, it's been just over a month since Flight 5, making this our quickest turnaround yet between Starship flight tests. Our ultimate goal is to get that turnaround time down to hours.
Following Flight 5, the SpaceX team went to work, immediately implementing lessons learned into the vehicle and tower's hardware and software systems for Flight 6. This is what rapid iteration looks
It's the
like.
same
We
one.
gather real data from these test flights and turn around and fly
Is
again
it the
as
same
soon as
Starship?
possible. This
Yeah.
is the process that is bringing us the
Oh, you mean
rapidly
that they
reusable
launched before?
Starship that will soon
Yeah.
be taking us
No.
to the moon and
No,
Mars.
different booster, different Starship.
Flight 5 proved that we can
They
safely
do
bring the booster
have the
back to
booster
the launch
that
tower,
landed
which is a key
before.
factor in driving rapid reusability,
'cause they
and
caught
land
it with
ship
that
with a
same
high
power. They're gonna
precision
try and do that
splashdown
here
in the
just
Indian
about
Ocean.
45 minutes.
We'll be taking you through
Again.
today's test objectives in just a moment,
but
but
the
first let's
Starship
check
that
in with
landed in the
Dan,
Indian
who is
Ocean
on the
sunk.
ground just a few miles from
And
the
they're gonna
pad
do that
at
again today.
Starbase with the best views. How's it going, Dan?
Hey Jesse, it's going fantastic. I got a couple hundred of my best friends out here ready to watch
bananas.
this launch
So I
and
gotta
hopefully
hear about
another
what that's
catch
about.
today. But welcome everybody back to Starbase for another Starship launch. I'm Dan Hewitt. Got Launch Control Center right behind me. Tower just about 6 miles over that shoulder. It has been a pretty quiet countdown. Not a lot of chatter on the loops right now as we are into prop load, and we are counting down to the very top of our window at 4 p.m. Central Time. So just about 32 minutes from now.
kinda
Right now, the
windy.
range is projected to be clear by then. We've got our assets out there making sure land, air, sea, everything
a lot
around
of
the
plane
launch
to try
pad,
to
and then
catch
our
this
flight
thing.
path
It's a
are
huge
clear
sail.
before we give the final go to liftoff today. We got through the weather poll. Everything was looking great. A little breezy today, but well within our constraints for both launch and catch criteria. And as you can tell, we're loading propellant onboard the vehicle. You can see those white frost lines starting to tick up as we're putting the cryogenic, the liquid methane, and liquid oxygen out to both of those vehicles. The ship prop load started at about T-minus 49 minutes, and then the booster followed just a couple minutes after at about T-minus 41. We're almost halfway full on ship, just about a third on booster. Those are both going to continue until we're about 3 minutes, 20 seconds before liftoff on ship. And then the booster is going to close out at about 2 minutes and 50 seconds. So we pretty much we're loading up right to that last possible minute, keeping it as dense and cold as possible, and then getting off the launch pad. The countdown startup sequence, everything will look very familiar if you watched Flight 5, assuming you did. But you're going to see the engines start to ignite at about 3 seconds before liftoff. They're going to start up in 3 different groups. First, those center 13, then 15 of that outer ring, and then those final 5, bringing all 33 Raptors online. After that, we'll see about a second later, and then it'll lift off, so a couple seconds from first light until motion. As usual, we can hold at T-minus 40 seconds if we have any last-minute issues to clear, anything with the range, anything that triggers on the vehicle. And if we pass T-minus 10 seconds, the deflector fires, and then we scrub, then we're done for the day for at least 24 hours. But weather is fantastic, light breeze, no clouds in the sky, not tracking any hardware constraints to launch today. If we're not able to get off the pad, though, we've got opportunities throughout the week, could be 24 to 48 hours later. But everything looking great. I'm excited to be able to see another one of these get off the pad. Check back in with everybody in just a couple of minutes. Back over to Jesse and Kate.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Now, you could see those 2 towers in the back there in the distance at Starbase. Starbase is really coming along just as rapidly as Starship itself. That second launch tower will be coming online next year, and it will allow us to increase our flight cadence and test even more frequently. And just a few kilometers away from the 2 towers, our cutting-edge 1 million square foot Star Factory is nearing completion with the goal of producing hundreds of ships a year.
Yeah, that might sound crazy, and that's because it is. If you can imagine a future where we are flying and catching a fleet of boosters, which is the lower portion of the vehicle, that fleet is actually pretty small compared to the potentially hundreds of ships, the uppermost portion of Starship, that will be flying in that future vision.
Yeah, exactly, Kate. Those ships will be staying in space for long-duration missions to go to the moon or Mars, or become tankers for refueling, or any number of other uses. But the boosters will come back and turn around to launch the next ship. So in order to hit that production cadence of hundreds per year, we're rapidly building out Star Factory, which is our Starship production facility in Texas.
And views of that Star Factory there. Now, this place allows us to move system integration work earlier in the build process, which means more efficiency, higher quality, and ultimately faster production. Starbase is an incredible place to be right now. There really is nowhere else in the world like it. You know, hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Now, what you might be hinting at is the good news is we are hiring. If you love what you're seeing, check out our openings at Starbase. On the engineering side, we're looking for vehicle design engineers across structures, propulsion, and integration.
And if you're a hands-on tech, we're looking for integration technicians and welders that can help us hit our goal of building a Starship every 8 hours. And to do that, we need builders.
Yeah, we're definitely going to need a lot of builders to get that down to just 8 hours.
Right?
Well,
now,
it's like
beyond that, in order
line.
to keep Starbase growing, we have all kinds of roles, from baristas to HVAC technicians to EMTs.
And so eventually there's one
chances
coming
are,
off the
if
line
you're
every 8
looking,
hours.
we have a place for you. Visit spacex.com/careers to see all of our openings.
Every role is critical to the future of Starship. With Starbase growing faster than ever, we can't do it without you.
This place is where our future is being built, and that is a future that we are all very excited about. All right, let's dive deeper into the inner workings of Starship and learn more about this flying skyscraper.
Starship features 2 major parts, the ship, which has 6 Raptor engines, and the Super Heavy booster, which has 33 Raptor engines. Now, just like flights 1 through 5, the current iteration of Starship is an experimental vehicle flying for development. And with a few planned upgrades, Starship will have 3 times the thrust of Saturn V at 10,000 metric tons of thrust, plus the added benefit of full reusability. Starship 2 will be capable of carrying more than 100 tons to orbit, and Starship 3 will be able to lift more than 200 tons to orbit. Now, the amount of mass we're able to launch per rocket is crucial to creating a self-sustaining city on Mars.
Exactly. And speaking of launch mass, we should probably acknowledge the banana in the room.
There you go.
And our today's secret payload.
Okay, so 2 things here. The first is, remember on Flight 5, we had a giant Mechazilla decal where the banana is today. And there you can see that on your screen. Now, that decal is 3 feet tall. which might be hard to tell looking at it on the ship right there, which is why we have a full-scale reproduction of that decal here with us so that you can see the size compared to humans.
Yeah, it is bigger than you think it is. Like Jesse said, it's 3 feet high, and this is full scale, just like the one that was on Flight 5. Now, it is hard to follow Mechazilla, but I do have one better. Bananas have been used for quick visual comparisons for quite some time, and our teammates thought it was time to bring the venerated yellow fruit to Starship.
Today, we're flying Starship's first ever physical payload, which is, as you might have guessed, is a banana. That's a live view inside Starship, and if you look closely, you can see
like
our
suspended
stuffed
in
banana
there?
payload, which is doubling as today's zero gravity or zero G indicator. And while this payload will remain inside the vehicle at all times and will not be deployed today, it did give us a chance to do a test run of payload approval processes with the FAA. And that's something that we're hoping to do next year if we start flying our first Starlink satellites on Starship. Godspeed, banana.
Some additional size for context, you can see on your screen a Starlink Mini next to a banana for scale. And to get an even better sense of how big Starship is, let's take the average size banana next to the average size human, which is about 2 meters high. Towering over our average human is the length of the Millennium Falcon, which comes in at 35 meters.
Millennium Falcon.
Our Falcon 9 rocket with the payload fairing attached is double the size of the Millennium Falcon at 70 meters, and nearly twice the size of that is the fully integrated Starship at 121 meters tall. The ship is about 50 meters, and the Super Heavy booster alone stands 71 meters tall.
So now you see
And we
the
do have
reason why I
plans to
really
make the
like
ship
this.
and
It's got
booster even
Millennium
taller in the
Falcon.
future.
And yeah, it might be hard to imagine that because it's pretty big already. Now, Starship's first stage has
Oh,
a
so
diameter
this is a
roughly
live view of the
2.5
bottom.
times that of Falcon 9, and as you can see on your screen, with
Have
33
Steven
much larger Raptor engines. I love this view.
Oh,
This is
man.
looking up at the aft end of Starship there at the engine bay. Now, moving up the rocket, the ship features 6 Raptor engines, 3 sea levels and 3 vacuum engines, which are optimized to operate in the vacuum of space. The ship is designed for vertical takeoff and landing on any hard surface, like the surface of the moon, for example. This ship is also outfitted with 4 flaps to help aerodynamically control the vehicle's attitude during atmospheric flight and enable a precision landing.
To reach full reusability, the ship must survive re-entry not just once, but multiple times. It took the teams at SpaceX about 3 years to develop the heat shield on Starship, and development for improvements is still ongoing. The ship's heat shield is composed of thousands of hexagonal ceramic tiles designed to insulate the vehicle during atmospheric entry, where temperatures degrees Celsius. The tiles are something we iterate on every flight test as we build towards a heat shield requiring no refurbishment between flights to unlock rapid reuse.
And the teams have actually already begun testing the heat shield tiles in environments simulating Mars atmospheric entry conditions, which we'll see more of in just a few minutes. You know, slightly different than coming back to Earth.
Just slightly different. And in between the first and second stages is our hot stage, which we saw in action on flights 2,
Over that
3,
shoulder,
4, and
It
5.
has been a pretty quiet
So
countdown.
let's recap that last flight to understand what we accomplished and how that's changing for today's flight.
On October 13th, Starship successfully lifted off at 7:25 a.m. Central Time from Starbase, Texas. A gorgeous sunrise ascent that was fairly quickly followed by the hot stage separation maneuver, which we see here, as well as on multiple previous Starship flights. The booster then performed a flip maneuver, boost back burn, and then we jettisoned that hot stage, which you see there. The booster then performed
ring
its
coming down.
boost back burn, which brought it back on a trajectory to the launch tower, back
Crazy
to the
how
Gulf
fast that thing's
Coast.
going.
We can see here the booster descending through the Earth's atmosphere. It broke the sound barrier again as it was coming back through. Those Raptor engines relit, and then the moment that made us all lose our minds, the booster came back for a successful first ever catch by the chopstick arms back at the exact same launch tower that it launched
Chopstick
from.
arms?
It was
What's that?
insane. As you can see, we all went bananas. And you did too,
Yes.
probably. Thousands of distinct vehicle and pad criteria had to be met, and thanks to the tireless work of the entire Starship team, we succeeded on that first attempt.
And while that all was happening, ship was continuing to coast towards the Indian Ocean. It executed an excellent coast, made its way down through re-entry, relit its engines, did that flip maneuver, relit its engines for landing burn, and then splashed down into the Indian Ocean. Now that whole flight test concluded, that splashdown 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 40 seconds after launch.
Starship's 5th flight test was one of our most ambitious yet, and as we work to demonstrate techniques fundamental to Starship and Super Heavy's fully and rapidly reusable design.
And I think I speak for all of us when I say that seeing the catch for the first time was an extraordinary moment for the entire SpaceX team. We've seen a lot of wild firsts here, but that was truly an epic moment in time.
Yeah, we're not forgetting that anytime soon. Certainly one in the history books. Now, today's mission profile is very similar to Flight 5, but there are some differences that we've incorporated as we prepare for future reuse. About 20 minutes from now, Super Heavy will ignite its 33 Raptor engines and lift off from Starbase. About 2.5 minutes into flight, the booster will separate from the ship in a hot stage separation, and we've seen that occur on multiple flights, including Flight 2, 3, 4, and 5. About 2 seconds after that burns, we'll jettison that hot stage. The booster will perform its flip and boost back maneuver. And we will once again look to return the booster to the launch site for a catch by the tower's chopstick arms. And once again, we will only attempt that if both the booster and tower are healthy after launch. We were successful last time, but we should emphasize that this process is still very new. And this is still just a test, so success is very far from guaranteed today. It's always a possibility that we'll lose the vehicle. It's a contingency that we always plan for.
Yeah, exactly. Now, while the booster is doing its job, the ship's 6 engines will remain lit for a few minutes before shutting down and then going into the coast phase. The ship will coast for a total of about 40 minutes or so, reaching a peak altitude of approximately 213 kilometers. Now, one additional objective for this flight during coast is an in-space burn using one of ship's Raptor engines. Doing a burn while in space will build confidence that we can do deorbit burns, which is a key capability for upcoming orbital missions. Now, after the coast phase, the ship will attempt a controlled re-entry, and if ship makes it all the way down, we'll once again perform a flip and landing burn before splashing down in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah. Now, there are some notable changes to our entry plans for this flight, and they will intentionally push the ship to, and very likely beyond, its limits. This includes several thermal protection upgrades and operational changes as we prepare for future ship catch and reuse. Today's flight test will also test new secondary thermal protection materials, and entire sections of the heat shield has actually been removed in certain areas. And on top of all of that, we're going to fly the ship at an aggressive angle of attack once it's moving slower than the speed of sound.
Now, this means we'll be flying nose down instead of our usual belly flop orientation during final descent. This will no doubt stress the limits of the flap's ability to maintain control, but it will be a chance to get real flight data on what our limits actually are.
So, to put it as bluntly as possible, do not be surprised if this is not a smooth flight to splashdown today. We are intentionally looking for how far we can push and discover the vehicle's true limits as we plan for future ship return and catch.
And even though ship recovery is not expected today, the telemetry and data we receive all the way to the end is what we're looking for and what will help us get to a rapidly reusable Starship of the future.
Now, just like Flight 5, one of our objectives for Flight 6 is attempting to return the booster to the launch site to be caught by the tower. The booster for this flight has upgrades to add redundancy across its propulsion system, increase the structural, as well as increasing the structural strength in a few spots. We've also implemented a few changes across both ship and tower to try and speed up the post-catch timeline. Returning vehicles to the launch site leverages the same hardware that we use for stacking ahead of flight, making our infrastructure multi-purpose. And in order for us to achieve that rapid reusability that we keep talking about, we need a quick turnaround. And you can't get much faster than returning the launch vehicle right back there to where it needs to launch from again.
Exactly. In this video, you can see our original render of booster catch alongside the actual footage of catch from Flight 5. This video is just mind-blowing to see the predicted versus reality. And just like the last flight for today's booster catch, there are thousands of criteria that need to be met in order to proceed with catch. Automated checks have to indicate we have a healthy booster and a healthy tower, and the flight director must issue a manual command, which is informed by manual checks from the flight control team. If this command is not sent prior to the completion of the boost back burn, or if automated health checks show unacceptable conditions with Super Heavy or the tower, the booster will default to a trajectory that takes it to a landing burn and soft splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico.
I remember when we first heard the call out that tower was go for catch on Flight 5, and wow, I still get goosebumps when I think about that moment. Now, for today's test,
Render
just like
versus
Flight
reality
5, we're
is
only
so
going to
close.
catch if everything on the booster and the tower checks out after launch. As always, we accept no compromises when it comes to the safety of the public and our team. And so to that end, the area around the pad and the flight path are cleared in advance.
A lot of things have to go right in order to line up the booster catch. So if all criteria is met, we will attempt to catch, but there is a chance that we may not. Either way, we'll be getting tons of in-flight data, which is extremely valuable.
Exactly. That first catch was pretty epic, though. So, like you, we'll be keeping our hopes high to see another one this afternoon. Now, Dan, you got to see it in person last time. Are you mentally prepared for a possible round 2?
I mean, probably not.
I'll be
That
right
was
back.
pretty hands down the coolest thing I've ever seen, and the fact that we're going to do that every time now breaks my brain a little bit, but it was absolutely incredible. One of the unique aspects with Super Heavy coming back is it does generate a sonic boom. This is something commonly associated with reusable spacecraft. It's coming in faster than the speed of sound and then slowing down. It creates that pressure wave that builds up, and then when it reaches you on the ground, that rapid change in pressure is that quick thunderclap sound that you hear. Now, generally, the only effect is that thunderclap sound, but if you're not expecting it, it's definitely going to get your attention, and we were able to hear it last time. The impact of, or how loud it is, changes pretty dramatically. And in this video, you can see as we were descending, and there was kind of that quick triple pop that you heard. Now, that was picked up from closer to the pad. Most people at our distance and further away, you're only going to hear one or two as they're happening kind of so on top of each other that it might just sound like one big bang. But as I said, that's something that's only associated with spacecraft being reused. We hear it with Falcon 9. We heard it during shuttle, and looking forward to hopefully
Looking a
hearing
little
it
breezy
today. Just a quick status check, though. We're about 85% full on ship, almost 2/3 of the way full on booster, continuing to count down about 13.5 minutes, a little under that, until we lift off today. But still looking good. I'll check
that's
back
better.
in with you guys in a few minutes. Back over to Jesse and Kate.
Thanks, Dan.
My
Yeah,
screens were kinda
I
fuzzy.
think Dan
Turns out I
said
didn't
it
have my
really
glasses
well
on.
when it really does hurt the brain to think that this is going to be the norm, that this is just the beginning. Every one of these flights is a step closer to a fully operational Starship that will take us beyond Earth orbit. And with our pace of rapid iteration here, the Moon and Mars are not nearly as far in the future as you may think. In fact, we're planning to send Starships to Mars as soon as 2026.
Which is when the next Mars transfer window opens,
Wow.
which is under 2 years from now.
here's
Now,
how
you might
the
be
orbits
familiar
have
with
to
the
line up.
Starlink logo, which you see there on your screen. It's an iconic representation of the Mars transfer orbit, also called the home and transfer orbit. This transfer window, or the time between the time when Earth and Mars are closest to each other, opens every 26 months and is only open for about 2 to 3 months at a time for a vehicle with Starship's power.
Lining up a launch to Mars is similar to how we launched to the International Space Station, where we timed the launches to match the station's orbit. If we didn't do this, we would need more propellant and more time to get there.
So the first opportunity we have to fly Starships to Mars, we plan to go for it. These first flight tests to Mars will be uncrewed
That
and
is
will
gonna
test
be
the reliability of landing and tech. If those landings go well, the first
course, we
crewed
have to wait
flights
for,
will
like, 6
soon
months
follow
later.
after that.
Right now, our flight tests
see how
are
it
focused
actually
on proving
lands
out
there.
reusability of both Super Heavy and Starship. In 2025, we'll continue that focus while also potentially flying our first Starlink missions and demonstrate capabilities central to our role in taking astronauts to the moon as part of NASA's Artemis program. Starship will be used to land astronauts on the lunar surface on NASA's Artemis 3 mission, which will put the first humans on the moon since 1972.
One key capability will be the ability to refuel Starship on orbit, which you can see there on your screen, with a Starship prop tanker docked with a fuel depot. Next year, we're planning to test this capability by launching 2 Starships and having them meet up to transfer tons of cryogenic propellants. Now, when the time comes to land on the moon, Starship will link up with NASA's Orion spacecraft in lunar orbit, where astronauts will transfer over for their descent. Now, once on the lunar surface, they'll ride the elevator down in their Axiom EMU spacesuits from Axiom Space and leave the first footprints on the moon in more than half a century, kickstarting humanity's mission to establish a sustainable presence there. And coming soon to a moon base alpha near you, Starship Enterprise Edition.
That is so exciting, and all the advancements that are going to come in order to enable all of that. Now, our rapid iterative development approach has been the basis for all of SpaceX's major innovative advancements, including Falcon, Dragon, and Starlink. Today, we're testing hardware and systems, and we need to know how they perform under the most extreme conditions. And what's more extreme than the flight environment? We'd much rather find the bugs and limits now during testing than later on when there's more on the line.
And to reiterate, while we do determine an acceptable level of technical risk on our vehicle and pad to learn as fast as possible, we accept no compromises when it comes to the safety of the public or our team.
Oh, but you can't
So
see.
all that to say, this is only the 6th of many future flight tests of Starship before it becomes fully operational.
And we tend to do our testing out in the open, just like today. And that means people sometimes see when our hardware doesn't perform as we planned during that testing. And that's okay, because this is exactly what we are testing for, to physically see if hardware performance matches what we expect it to do or not. Even more with today's test flight, where we're purposefully pushing the ship beyond its limits.
Starship development is also being aided by Starlink space-based connectivity. You might remember the Starlink panels that are incorporated into Starship, and you can see them there on data engineers need to continue development.
Yeah, Starlink continues to help us push the limits in space in the short term by providing great views and real-time data on our next few flights, particularly through re-entry, which spaceflight veterans know that is historically a period of blackout for all communications within spaceflight.
Outside of Starship, Starlink has helped people across the globe, particularly in rural and remote areas that have been underserved by traditional broadband internet.
Yeah, and soon, Starship will deploy our next generation Starlink satellites, which will continue to increase our capability to connect even more people with high-speed internet all around the world and beyond. Now, as we continue to prepare for our next several flight tests, we recently performed a cryo-proof test of the Starship for Flight 7, our first operation with a vehicle debuting a number of major milestones. The ship has been stretched to make room for larger propellant tanks, increasing the propellant capacity from 1,200 tons to 1,500 tons. The forward flaps also got a redesign. They have shrunk in size and they also shifted in location, and both of these things will help better protect them during entry heating while still providing control. There's also a wide range of upgrades that will make the vehicle more reliable, adding redundancy and the ability to operate for longer durations in space.
One unique aspect of a trip to Mars are the different conditions ship will see when entering the Martian atmosphere. Now, it's difficult to simulate Mars's atmosphere when re-entering on Earth, so we've been testing a variety of heat shield materials inside a specialized plasma jet chamber at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, where we're able to more closely simulate Mars's 95% carbon dioxide atmosphere.
Aside from looking awesome, this is important testing. The intense heat of entry will cause the CO2 to break down into its base elements, exposing Starship to atomic oxygen, which increases surface heating and can cause materials to oxidize or start to break down. Spacecraft entering over Mars encountered more than twice the amount of atomic oxygen at their peak when compared to Earth, and that is certainly a unique challenge. As we continue to test, we'll learn more about what makes a great heat shield for Mars. All right, now that we're heading into the final minutes of the countdown, let's go back to Dan for the latest on the ground there at Starbase.
Hey, Kate, afraid I have nothing but good news for you. We have a go from our range safety team. We are a little over 90% full on ship. almost 85% full on booster, and not tracking any holds to an on-time liftoff. So we've got about 3 more minutes of prop load.
see all those
As long as the
ships,
range stays
boats over
clear, we
here?
don't trip any other holds. We might blow right past
So over
that
the next
T-minus
week,
40-second mark and
you'll
lift
see all
off right at
kinds
the
of
top of our
recordings from
window
people
at 4
from
p.m.
those
Central.
places.
So toss it back to you guys one more time, but fun part about to start, we are
That's a long ways
little under
away,
6
too.
minutes away from launch.
All right, so we are continuing to progress now at 5 minutes and 43 seconds until liftoff. Now, once we pass the T-minus 40-second mark, a number of events are going to occur in rapid succession. The ground spin and ignition systems will come up to flight pressure, and the ship will go on to internal power.
And then after that, the quick disconnect, or what we call the QD arm lockout, is removed in preparation for retraction shortly after T0. And once we pass the T-minus 40-second mark, we still have the ability to recycle the count under certain conditions back to T-minus 40 seconds, and then hold there to assess what happened and if we can proceed again to T0.
Exactly.
go, weather,
However,
range, and
once the
vehicle.
water for the deflector system begins flowing at T-minus 10 seconds, any issue after that would be an automatic scrub for the day, as the teams would need to refill the deflector's water tanks as well as the propellant storage tanks over at the tank farm before we're able to make another attempt.
Now,
why
it
they
is
have to
just
wait for
so
like a day
unbelievable
before
that
they
it's
can
just
try
been
again.
only a little over a month, and we are just a few minutes away from Flight 6.
Crazy.
The crowd here is building up. We've got a much larger crowd here than when we were launching at 4 or 5 in the morning out here. So very exciting to have an afternoon launch to have all the employees here.
Exactly.
this-
Now,
this
just as a
afternoon
reminder,
launch is so
that
they can
T-minus 40-second
watch the Starship land in the Indian
hold,
Ocean in
if
the
we
daylight.
opt to use it, everything is still potentially go for launch. So nothing to be worried about there. At that point, basically up until T-minus 40 seconds, all aborts are just holds. This would allow the team to wait for final checkouts to assess propellant levels, engines, avionics, vehicle pressurization, range, weather. Occasionally we've had shrimp boats lingering in the past, but that doesn't sound like that is the case today.
Yeah, not today. No shrimp boats, which is
That
great.
happened last time.
Everything so far is looking good.
close to having
We're
a
getting
scrub
really
because the
excited
boat was
here,
still
just a
up
few
there.
minutes away. We're going to go back, send it over to Dan in Starbase. How's it going, Dan?
It is still going great, just coming up on about 3.5 minutes away, so we should be done with our prop load on ship momentarily. Then about our flight control team on board, or in the building just behind me, not on board. Some of them might wish they were on board. Flight control team in the building behind me, they're going to have a lot of work
don't
to
think I
do
wanna be
right
on board
after we
just yet.
lift off, as we still have a lot of manual checks that happen on the tower prior to the flight director, who's going to be Tristan Pierce again today, giving a manual command to bring the booster back to the launch site. And the tower did just incredibly well on the last flight. We didn't lose any of our required redundancy for a catch, so we're hoping to see that
that's a heck
again
of a
today. A lot of the team, really putting armor on the tower, making all of those things work, played a huge role in making that catch possible, and looking forward to hopefully seeing that happen again. And of course, sending our first payload to space. You can see the banana. It's very tightly secured,
a
but
banana
I
suspended
assure you it does have
inside
some
the
room to float around. So once we're in a zero
guys are
gravity environment,
crazy.
we should see our first Starship zero gravity indicator putting on a little bit of a
They're all
show.
wearing T-shirts that
And
say
that's
it's
looking right in.
bananas.
That's where we're going to have Starlinks. That's our PEZ deployer. So getting its ride to space. So coming up on about 2.5 minutes, we are closing out on all of our prop load. Just heard that our fill drains are starting to close, so that means we're no longer going to be flowing propellant into the. We're going to do what's called pushbacks. So all of that propellant in the ground systems is going to get pushed back to the tanks, clear out everything around the
than 2
pad
minutes.
right before we light those 33 engines and take off. Just quick reminder, you're going to see fire start at the bottom. You're going to see the deflector start at about 10 seconds before launch. Lots of water to help dissipate all that heat, all that sound. And then the engine's starting up in
Once
3
it
different
gets
groups.
below a minute,
and then about a second
they
after
can't stop it, I
T0,
don't
we
think.
should see liftoff. About
40
2.5
seconds? Okay.
minutes into the flight, a little bit longer, we'll see hot staging. And that's when we're going to
there's
be
a lot of
listening
people
really
watching this,
close
it
on
keeps
those
lagging.
loops to see if we're going to be bringing the booster back for a catch today. Do always want to caution, it's never a guarantee. We've done this once. We'll see if we do it again. We're only going to do it if the booster and the tower are looking really good before we attempt to bring it back here. But coming up on a minute, not tracking any holds on the board right now. So as long as we don't have any last second things, which do happen.
This always gets my heart beating faster. I'm gonna have a heart attack.
Is Mom
Flight
there
director
still?
just confirmed
Yep.
T-minus
She's
1
watching.
minute. Key moment to look at in 10 seconds, that T-minus 40.
Oop, it went past it. No hold.
And we flew right through that.
Oh! Ah! This is on my bucket list. I want to see one of these live.
Flight directors go for launch.
All right, we're now T-minus 20 seconds until liftoff of Starship Flight 6. This will mark our second attempt to catch the Super Heavy booster at the launch tower, as well as
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Detect liftoff.
Look at the length of the screen. I like how big that flash is.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Booster Raptor, chamber pressure nominal.
It's inside the Starship.
Booster and ship, avionics, power, and telemetry nominal.
I got all 33 engines are going. The first time they launched it, they blew the crap out of the launch stand.
Vehicle
All right, we're
reached
just a little over a minute into
maximum
flight.
dynamic pressure.
We're about 6 miles away, so all the sound's still hitting us here. Hearing good call-outs that power telemetry nominal, that's flying straight and true. We do see all
Yeah.
33 Raptor engines lit up on telemetry screens.
Really loud.
At this point, we've passed through that point of maximum aerodynamic pressure, that max Q. Now, coming up in just a little over a minute from now is going to be hot staging. So we're going to see the 6 engines on the ship ignite while still attached to the booster. Just before that, we'll see all but 3 center engines on the booster shut down. In what we call MECO, it's most engines cut off instead of main engine.
Most engines cut
And
off.
so while we
That's
continue to watch it go up, a lot of our flight controllers looking at all the systems around the tower, again, we have to send a manual command. Just about 30 seconds away from hot staging.
They need to get to the onboard cameras.
And we heard the tower is go for catch.
Booster engine cut off.
The return flag is set for true.
Oh,
Ship
they're hot
engine
stage.
start up.
They don't have the camera views from the
Stage
onboard.
separation.
All right, hot staging confirmed.
Booster
6 out of
dispatch
6
setup.
lit on the ship. Booster.
And this is another view of the booster separation that SpaceX posted on X some days after the launch, or sometime after the launch. It's a pretty cool view, so I thought I'd put it up.
Lit on the ship. Booster boost back going. We heard that
there we
we are
go.
go for catch. Kate, Jesse, take the views. Hopefully I got a booster
So that's from the
coming
booster.
home real soon.
Wow, from our view here, Dan, great views of planet Earth
boosting
behind
back.
that super heavy booster. Right now it is performing the
Ship
boost
chamber
back
pressure
burn.
nominal.
Good news there, telling us that the pressures inside the ship are good. That is the second stage, or the upper portion of the vehicle. Follow along with the telemetry on the bottom of your screen.
So
Yeah,
here,
booster
this
is
shows-
currently, Super Heavy is currently in its boost back burn. This boost back
Ship
burn,
avionics power and telemetry nominal.
this boost back burn lasts just a little bit over a minute. So we've got a little, approximately 30 seconds left.
We've had shutdown of that boost back burn. Up next will be hot stage jettison. The view from the camera on the left, or from the booster on the left-hand side of your screen, and then tracking cam there on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll see those grid fins,
Booster offshore divert.
and we can also see that the hot
fall.
stage has been
Wait,
jettisoned.
what is that?
Yes, visual confirmation of that there on your screen, which is great. Now the next
Starship is following a nominal trajectory.
step for booster is going into that landing burn. Again, it'll light up 13 of those engines and then pare down to 3 engines right before
We haven't heard if
booster
they're
catch.
gonna-
All right, now
It's
just
good to
real
make
quick,
a
we
catch.
did hear the call out, booster offshore divert. Unfortunately, that means that we are no-go for the catch.
Dang it.
As we said before, both the tower and the vehicle, as well as the operators on console, have been actively evaluating the commit criteria for that return to the launch tower. And unfortunately, we did not have a pass on those commit criteria. So we are no-go for tower catch.
And we did mention
Correct.
that we're
Wanted
constantly
to see another tower
evaluating the criteria for catch. There's a lot of things that need to go well in order to line that up. Unfortunately, today we will forego booster catch today. But what you're seeing on your screen is ship currently making its way towards the Indian Ocean, still looking good so far.
Exactly. So views there of the booster on the left-hand side of your screen, views of the ship on the right-hand side of your screen. Now, we said before that it was not guaranteed that we would be able to make a tower catch today. So while we were hoping for it, like we said, it was pretty epic on attempt 1, but the safety of the teams and the public and the pad itself are paramount. So
think they're
we
still
are
gonna
accepting
get a
no
pretty good view of it.
compromises in any of those areas.
Exactly, and we're still going to get a lot of good flight data with booster even, but especially with ship. Again, we have an additional objective today to do an in-space relight of a Raptor engine, which again will help us set us up for being able to do deorbit burns, which is
Ship chamber pressure nominal.
which is important for orbital flights. And what you're seeing on your screen is a view from Super Heavy as it's making its way back down to Earth.
Yeah, once again, we are attempting an offshore
Look at that.
landing of the
It's
Super
moving
Heavy
so
booster.
fast.
So we have
Glowing
seen this
underneath.
before, and it is still very fun to watch, watching it come down for a soft splashdown off the Gulf Coast of Texas. We can see it there
Just landing in the
re-entering.
water.
We saw earlier
Yeah.
those grid fins. There are 4
See, right
hypersonic
now,
grid fins. Oh, we can see that the landing burn has begun on the Super Heavy booster.
And same pattern, 13 engines will light, gone down to 3 just as we expected. And what an incredible view of splashdown that we got today
And it'll fall over.
of
Did you land
Super
on that?
Heavy.
Yeah, I'm sure the buoy cam views will be pretty awesome
Oh, they
once
put
again. So we'd like to confirm
different camera
a
just
water
as it
landing
was
once
falling
again
over.
for the Super Heavy booster.
Oh, there it is.
Congrats to the SpaceX team for making
Yeah.
What
that
a
milestone
laugh.
as well.
It's not
Now,
designed to
ship
fall over.
continues to look good. We can see that it is, while all of that was happening, the crowd here in Hawthorne continuing to react to all these amazing views that we're getting.
Oh,
The next
man.
milestone
I was so looking
is
forward to
Starship
that
is in
catch
terminal
again.
guidance.
That was amazing.
great
last
news
time.
there. Starship terminal guidance, referring to what we see here on our screen, the upper stage, at about 8 minutes 35 seconds or so, we
this thing is
have
just shy
ship
of,
engine cutoff, which will be the cutoff of
orbital
the
speeds.
the Raptor engines.
There, it's shutting down.
We can see
which one
on
are they
our
stress
screen ship
testing? This
giving
one?
us some incredible
Yeah.
views
Still going?
brought to us by Starlink. This view is also very interesting because we can see basically the receding tile line that we referred to earlier, where we mentioned we have removed a number of heat shield tiles in order to test out and push the envelope on the ship and demonstrate what its capabilities are.
Ship engine cutoff.
And there we just heard call out for SECO, ship engine cutoff. Great news there. Everything continuing to look awesome.
I think it's crazy
For
that they have a
ship.
camera inside the
Full
engine
view looking aft
compartment.
on ship here.
Ship FTS is saved.
It's all the stuff flying around.
Nominal orbit insertion.
There's that call out we were waiting for. Confirmation of good orbital insertion for ship today.
It has been a very exciting afternoon so far. We'd like to send it back over to Dan, who can give us that live view experience. Dan,
Mom's falling asleep
once
back
again, are you okay after witnessing another Starship launch?
Yeah, totally fine. It's you guys have to be jealous. This is the only way to do this. This is fantastic. No, it was really cool to see it lift off 33 out of 33. Didn't go for the booster catch today. Initially, we were good, and then we tripped a commit criteria and did the offshore divert. So we went and did that water landing, as everybody saw. We'll dig into it a little bit more. But again, we've done it once, we've now done it twice. We're going to keep trying to do it, as this is just a core capability of Starship and what's going to make it so incredible. There's a lot left. We're just about almost 10 minutes into this flight, so about 50 plus minutes still to go. Ship nominal orbit, so it's on its way around the planet. It's going to attempt to do an in-space burn. We're going to light one of those Raptor engines, the sea level ones in the middle. Just to help demonstrate that we can relight in that microgravity environment, really critical for deorbit burns as we start to do some orbital missions in the not too distant future. And then following that, we'll see a ship entry, maybe a splashdown. As you guys said, we're really going to be pushing ship on this one.
I want to see the banana.
We're pretty much intentionally putting it in places
I can't
where
imagine
we
that it
expect
managed
it might
to
not do
hang
so
on
great.
to whatever it was
And all
tied
that's to
with.
try and help us learn,
Yeah.
see if we were a little too conservative, and
probably-
then maybe that opens up more capability for when we start
Yes.
catching them. But
Splattered
I'll
against a
check back
wall
in with
somewhere.
everybody in a little bit. I'm going to tune in and watch the ship fly around planet Earth, and hopefully we see it re-entering in the not too distant future. Back over to you guys.
Thanks, Dan. Development testing, by definition, is unpredictable, which we saw with Super Heavy splashing down in the Gulf of Mexico today, but that is exactly why we test. As is standard for these tests, the area around the pad and along the flight path was cleared prior to launch, and we expect the road and beach to remain closed until further notice.
Yeah, testing development flight hardware in a flight environment is what enables our teams to quickly learn and execute design changes and hardware upgrades to improve the probability of success in the future. Please do not attempt to approach the booster in the water for your safety as well as for that of our team that will be working on recovery. Now, we
Yeah,
are
we'll try and
going to
pull that
continue, though.
out.
The mission is not done.
Part.
Exactly. The mission's not over. Ship is still coasting. But it has been nonstop since liftoff, and with the booster having completed its job for the day, we are going to take a short break for the next 35 minutes or so while ship continues to coast before re-entry. Now, as with previous flights, Starlink may enable us to talk to the ship through re-entry with no communication blackout. Now, we are still testing Starlink during this phase of flight, so nothing is completely certain.
Yeah, so if we do have views, we will be sure to bring those to you live. And of course, one of those views include that of our, as we said before, surprise payload, the banana. And we are looking forward to it. So we're going to come back in a few minutes, around T plus 35 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Views or no views, we'll see you back here at T plus 40 minutes for our coverage of Starship's re-entry, flip maneuver, landing burn,
Yeah,
and
about
hopefully
half an
see a
hour from now.
splashdown.
This is when they'll come back on for the splashdown. Huh. Well, dang, I wanted to see that thing come down. There we go. Let me see. Mute these guys. I can unmute these guys.
Yeah, apparently at first the tower was go, but it seems like it was something during the boost back burn for the booster.
These are the
It seems
the nutso
at
people
least that something was not,
from
not
NASA spaceflight.
right there.
The ones that are much more excited
Honey,
about
Jack
this
Morton
than me,
explosion,
but
right?
it's fun to listen to.
And that's absolutely understandable. Just to point this out again, this rocket.
What's amazing is
you
these
have a lot of
views.
boosters. They have a lot of boosters.
It's
They have
high
a lot of
definition
ships.
views,
They right now
and the
only
last
have
time we
one
didn't lose them at all
operational launch complex.
during the entire
So
time that was
protecting
going
that
on
at
the
all
Earth.
costs, if
'Cause
something
they're
is not
they're
right,
linked to Starlink
that is the
satellites,
right approach because they
or they're
can launch again in
transmitting through
2-3 months and
That's
try
just
again.
amazing.
But they cannot rebuild a whole launch site in 2-3 months if they completely have something off and land a booster inside of it.
Yeah, so I didn't know how long you wanted
that
to
is
stay
the
on.
approach that we want to see. That is a very reasonable
You can come back in
decision.
30 minutes.
And yeah,
I might do that.
Absolutely,
I'm
still
probably going
amazing
to,
footage. The pictures are absolutely
Stop
beautiful.
recording.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
There it is.
And there's the banana. There's the banana payload.
Still alive.
There it is.
It
Banana
looks
for-
alive.
Pez dispensed that banana.
You can see
Yep,
the
and
That's gravity.
Ooh, it lit.
And
Just
shut down.
heard the call out for startup.
Oh,
There's some light. There's that Raptor relit. And shut down.
Something fell off.
it's ice.
All right, there you have it. The first time.
Nope, it's still 15 seconds. Huh. I don't think this is heat yet. It's not what it looked like. Well, maybe it is. I don't think we're low enough to get that amount of heat. It will come on and tell us in a minute. Yeah, so in this amount of time, it's gone all the way to the other side of the planet. I think it's landing somewhere between Australia and the Philippines in the Indian Ocean. It was funny, the first time they put one up, their attitude jets froze up in a way that they didn't expect. So they were playing with the thing, trying to move it around, and they like completely lost control of it. And it was just tumbling. It was going head over end and around in a circle. And so when it finally came down into the atmosphere, it actually did pretty well for all of that. But it just, I mean, the wrong side, the heat tiles weren't oriented properly, and it was just going round and round, and you could see as it came around, the engine bells were just getting torched. And you could see it for a while, but then they lost contact because I think it blew up. Be interesting to see, because with this new with the Trump administration in there, and Elon Musk and their current good terms with Trump, if that all continues, I suspect that their pace will do nothing but increase. Right now, I mean, they've been having to fight the FAA to launch, and they're just dragging their feet. Kept putting roadblocks up, environmental studies, and you name it, until finally enough people made noise, and I made noise. I contacted my congressman and said, hey,
altitude, good attitude for atmospheric entry.
oh yeah, it's starting to glow now, I think. This is different, because now we're getting, you can see the heat as opposed to just the plasma. Wow. Hasn't really slowed down much. It's at 807. So the reason that have you noticed how it kind of, the view moves? Not this one. You see here, this is methane or oxygen. This stuff that's poking out here. But you'll see this view move. Oh, hey, here we can see there's some of the flaps. This is a forward flap, that's a rear flap. This is a forward flap, looking from one of the rear flaps, which is why all of a sudden you'll see that you feel like the ship is moving or rotating, but it's not actually the ship as so much as it is the flap, because the camera's on the flap. So. Are you still there, Steven?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I keep falling asleep.
Oh, that's what was happening to Mom. She was falling asleep.
Ugh.
With when it's really cold like that, it makes it tough. You need an electric blanket.
Well, when I go to sleep, it's fine.
Okay.
It's actually kind of, I think I sleep a little better when it's colder.
Yeah, so do I.
But
I have a hat that I wear when it's chilly, and that actually helps me quite a bit. So.
Welcome back to Starship's 6th test flight. It has been an exciting day so far. We lifted off from Starbase at 4 p.m. Central Time. Booster and ship had a successful separation, as well as a good boost back burn and good separation of the hot stage adapter. We did not attempt a return to the launch site and catch attempt today when strict criteria were not met, and the Super Heavy booster executed a planned
in the last couple ones, it'll start to burn
to
through
a landing
here.
Burn and soft splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico.
And this isn't their redesigned flap,
yeah,
so
obviously we were hoping to come back to the tower, but this was a test, and we knew that it was a very viable possibility.
Starship is at 85 kilometers. Flaps now have control of the vehicle.
Uh-huh.
All right, great news there, turning our attention over to the star of the show here, giving us these amazing views once again. We heard the call out there telling us that the Starship vehicle is now 83 kilometers above, coming up around T+.
Can you see the
plus,
different kind of boundaries
now, actually,
of the plasma?
The ship, as you can see, is beginning to re-enter the
weird.
Earth's atmosphere.
It's
As
just
a reminder,
whatever
one of the main
structure
goals
is on
of
the
today's flight test is for the ship to make it through the extreme heat of reentry and to do so in a controlled manner. Now, reentry is typically a portion of flight where we don't have communication capability with the spacecraft because it's re-entering at or around orbital velocity, which is roughly 8 kilometers per second or about 5 miles per second. Now, at those speeds, pretty fast. The spacecraft is moving through the atmosphere
5 miles per second.
Rather quickly, and that results in friction, as
That's
we
why
can
it
see
heats
that
up.
starting to happen on our screen, and this creates a plasma field around the vehicle. That blanket of plasma distorts communication frequencies, so it's not uncommon to experience brief blackouts in communication.
Well, and in any other spaceship, like
Starship
the shuttle
or
or
peak heating phase of entry.
capsules that come in, they don't hear anything at all.
And we just heard we're getting into the peak heating phase. We're getting these views courtesy of Starlink. We've got 4 different terminals on the ship itself. It's what's really allowed us to get real-time data during what's otherwise been just a mystery box, essentially, for spacecraft design, where when you're re-entering through the atmosphere, at least getting anything in real time hasn't ever been possible before. But we're able to not just get these views, but real-time telemetry from the ship as it's coming through. Do really want to stress that we are really pushing the ship today. The heat shield is not in the same configuration as it was last flight, where we had a team of ship techs do just an otherworldly task, replacing the entire heat shield, thousands of tiles, installing a backup ablative, and that pretty much set us up to do a pinpoint landing on Flight 5. We did not do that with this one. We have some backup in those really sensitive areas around the flap, but this is an older generation heat shield.
Oh.
And knowing we weren't going to do that, we even went and removed some extra tiles. There are some missing tiles on the nose cone where we're testing some backups. there are some steel-covered tiles in a couple of different spots.
They're catching data,
and
they're
there's also
expecting this thing to
a whole lot more
not
steel
make
of the ship showing, as you guys talked about.
A whole
We
lot
gave
of
it a
ship
little bit of a
showing.
haircut, a couple hundred tiles trimmed off the sides, and that's where we might have catch fittings in the future. But color's starting to come in, so it looks like things are going to start heating up, Kate and Jesse.
Yeah, fun fact, Dan, we actually removed 2,100 heat shield tiles
Holy cow.
from Starship in order to basically present that necessary receding line, which you kind of can see there in your view. Think back to previous flights. The heat shield line came up further on
So that means
the vehicle,
that
and just like Dan
we
said,
might not be
we
able
want
to see it
test
very well,
the vehicle beyond
'cause they've got a
what
buoy
we
in the
think
ocean
it is capable of carrying based on our
about where they
simulations
want
and
it to land.
calculations.
But it might not
so
be where they
once
want
again,
it to. It might not make it
just
there.
be super plain. Don't be surprised if we see some wackadoodle stuff happen here. We won't be. There are a number of things that we are testing out intentionally to see what the ship can take.
Yeah, exactly. And knowing what those limits are will really help us design the vehicle of the future. Essentially, removing those tiles helps us remove a lot of weight from the vehicle, a lot of things that might potentially need refurbishment in the future. And the goal is to come up with a heat shield pattern or design that we don't have to refurbish. We can just continue to use it over and over again. And that's why removing a lot of those tiles, as Kate has been mentioning.
Exactly. And, looking forward to the Starship capability of the future, we want to be able to catch Starship like we do with boosters. And so the next flight, we want to better understand where we can install catch hardware, not necessarily to actually do the catch, but to see how that hardware holds up in those spots. And today's flight will help inform, does the stainless steel hold up like we think it may based on experiments that we conducted on Flight 5? Now, continuing to look, amazing views. Yeah, Dan, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, there's so much on this flight that we're doing to try and, make all the ships that we're about to start flying even better, just really understand
So they've
what
got
their
data
capabilities
streams
are
that they're going to be,
We've
that they're
got
recording like
kind of the
crazy all
next-gen
the way
ship
up until this thing
lined up for
goes
Flight
kablooey.
7. It's got all of those heat shield upgrades and everything.
Oh.
And one of the things that we're going to be doing that's most interesting, and one of the reasons we wanted
Now
daylight,
it's
is we're
slowing
going to
down
be
fast.
flying pretty aggressively as ship comes in. We're going to be kind of nose down, and we've done it in wind tunnels. We've done it in simulations. You might see the flaps really flapping around trying to control the vehicle. We're betting we might have a little bit more capability than we think in just the analysis, but always a chance that bet doesn't pay off. But that just helps us know what are our
Starship
limits.
is now halfway through the peak heating phase of entry.
Sweet. Halfway there. Halfway home, guys.
Yeah, and if you guys, again, can follow along with the
really
altitude
hot right
and
there.
the speed of ship as it's making its way back down to Earth, bottom
where it started
right-hand
to
corner
eat
of your
through.
screen. Speed is still going really, really fast. Again, as it gets closer to Earth, we'll see that altitude drop a little bit faster. It's kind of dropping pretty slow right now. And again, as we get closer and closer to literally the surface of the water, then we'll start to see that speed pick up. And if we can make it through this re-entry, we will attempt to do that flip maneuver once again and splash down in the ocean.
Exactly. Like we've been saying, we are testing beyond the perceived limits of the vehicle. We want to go learn more about the ship, and this is a great opportunity to do that. So really pushing the flight hardware in a
This is such a
flight
crazy
environment,
way
to help
of
inform these
testing.
future designs.
Nobody's ever done this
As we've
before.
mentioned, it has a different
Let's
heat
push it
shield.
up
This
there
heat
and
shield
just
is
play with it.
a
See what happens.
not the same generation as what we flew last time. This one is one generation older. So we are also testing out new secondary thermal protection materials. So basically, if the heat shield isn't in this one spot, can this other material protect the metal is the thinking there. Also, checking of the ship's structural strength in those areas where we're looking to add that ship catch hardware just to see if it survives entry. So
Plasma.
yeah, as we've been saying, we've done a lot of calculations and simulations. This view right
That's
here
so
is
strange.
super cool. This is looking out from the aft engine bay,
This
basically
one.
at the bottom of Starship. Then on the center left-hand panel, if you will, we have one of the forward Starship
it's starting to
flaps.
burn through.
So one of the flaps located at the
See
top
that?
of the vehicle. Underneath that is one of the aft end flaps, like the one that we see in the main picture there on the right-hand side of your screen. Now, these views as the vehicle continues to enter the Earth's atmosphere, drawing a crowd once again here at SpaceX in Hawthorne as folks tune in as the mission continues on.
This
now,
is
the
quite
next
different
event
compared to
that we
last
have
time.
coming up, we should hear the call out that the vehicle is transonic around T plus 1 hour and 2 minutes or so. That means that the vehicle is traveling near the speed of sound. We say near the speed of sound because there are certain parts of the vehicle
bet
where
you this is a
airflow
heck
is
of a view
going
from the
faster
ground.
and other parts where it's going slower.
People
So it
watching
kind
this thing
of
come- 'cause
teeters
you can
there
see
on
this
the brink of the
streaking
speed
through
of
the
sound.
atmosphere like a meteor.
Once we have equal flow on all parts, then we'll hear it's subsonic.
Yeah, and
Oh, and almost real quick, almost a reverse of, I'm sorry, Jesse, almost a reverse of before. We see the Earth starting to come into view. We've got sunrise there over the Indian Ocean. So this is going to look different from any of the re-entries we've had before. And it was specifically so like we get as much daylight as possible to see how ship does this. Over to you, Jesse. Sorry about that.
Dan, great minds think alike. That's exactly what I was going to point out, is that we're getting a lot clearer view of the Earth in the background with the different temperatures that we're seeing, with the different colors of that plasma around the ship, which is really, really cool to see.
That
Again,
is weird. This is
we
quite
are
different from
pushing the
last time.
limits of ship today, but so far everything is looking pretty nominal. We'll see how the next few minutes goes.
Yeah, like we've said before, don't be surprised if this is not entirely smooth sailing all the
you
way
see the
down
front
to
here
the
of this flap,
ocean
Steven?
surface. Similar to Flight 5, we are targeting the same splashdown location in the Indian Ocean,
they were
but
showing
we are
the
not expecting
one
to
of the front
recover
flaps,
the
and you can
vehicle.
start to see it's
Right, and we were
looks
getting
like
some
it's trying
glimpses
to burn
of the
through.
flaps. The flaps so far are looking
Right
pretty
here.
good. We're
See
not
that?
seeing any burn through. There's those flaps again
bit right there.
in that hinge area, which is our most concerning area there. That's great news for us for now. Again, the next few minutes could change as we continuously push those limits.
Yeah, once we slow down a little bit, once we're subsonic essentially, so I think that's about 1,200 kilometers an hour. Once we're down below that, that's when we're going to kind of dip our nose down and get that more aggressive angle of attack. Normally we're just
so they haven't done that
belly
yet.
flop right into the water, pretty much that position. But if we're going to be able to do return to launch sites, we're going to want to be able to fly with a little bit more of an angle of attack, get you a little bit more range as you're coming through. And so this'll be just a test to see quite how far can we push it. And obviously we're going to do these kind of tests way out here in super remote areas before you ever try to bring a ship back to a place like Starbase.
Starship remains on a good entry trajectory. External temperatures are coming down.
All right, great news there. That tells us that we are through the phase of peak heating. So we are expecting these temperatures to continue to come down. Once again, we are targeting a soft splashdown in the Indian Ocean around off the northwest coast of Australia.
Yeah, look at the
We
flaps,
can see
Steven.
these beautiful views of planet
There's chunks
Earth
coming off
coming
now.
in. Yeah, this is very different where we had nighttime views
not good.
of the ship as it was re-entering, and now we've got daylight. It is about an hour or so after sunrise there in the Indian Ocean. So pretty cool to see this.
Yeah, and it might not seem like it makes a huge difference, but we do get a little bit more light on ship as well for the camera views that we have, which is very beneficial for us to visually see anything and try and correlate that to any of the sensors or data that we have on the vehicle.
Exactly.
even
That
mucking
is
up their
why we
camera.
shifted our launch window so that we could have that daylight
debris
in order
coming off of
to
the ship.
improve our observations of the vehicle. So not only are we getting all the raw data from all the sensors that are on board Starship, but we also have multiple cameras and assets out there that are watching the vehicle and will also be able to tell us with this visual story that is also very, very important.
And as we get down a little bit lower, the Raptor engines are in their chill phase right now, so just essentially getting them primed to turn on. We're going to use those 3 center engines to do a landing flip and then a landing burn.
I want to see that flap
So
again.
we'll come down
Come
kind
on.
of in that slightly pointed down belly flop and then fire off those engines to flip us around and then do that final landing burn. That should be coming up in just under 5 minutes from now. And then hopefully we start hearing some call outs on transonic and subsonic as we slow down. Again, once you hear Starship as subsonic, keep a close eye on the flaps. They're going to be working overtime essentially to maintain control of the ship as we get a little more aggressive with this.
So if I want to see that flap, that was. Oh, yep, there we go. Look at that, Steven.
We can see that we are beginning.
Starship has passed maximum entry dynamic pressure.
All right, great call out there. But we can see on this view here that we do have some heating there on that looks like one of the forward flaps on Starship. This is to be expected. We knew that the vehicle would perform differently than what we had seen on Flight 5. This is actually really good data because it tells us what parts of the vehicle at this, what will soon be a higher angle of attack once we drop down below the speed of
it's cooling
sound.
down now, though.
We'll have a higher angle of attack, meaning we're going to be flying nose down, basically. So yeah,
Okay.
this is good news, but we can actually, looks like that heating is starting to cool off there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little burn through. Again, it is important to note when we start seeing that through the ship's descent as well. So,
Hello?
like Kate was saying, we're getting some really good
Okay, they're
data
just-
here.
it's
Looks
just
like,
coming in for the
the
landing,
other
so
flaps
I'll come
are
up when that's
doing
done.
a little better than the one that has a little burn through, which is some good
Okay.
news.
Bye.
Again, constantly watching. We've got a couple minutes until we're expecting to make it all the way back down to Earth.
Exactly. And like we said before,
This is very different.
We are not expecting to recover the ship, although that would be great. It'd be a nice bonus if it happened, but it's not really in our expectations today. We really want to push the hardware, as we've been saying, but really the telemetry and the data and the video that we receive all the way to the end is truly what we're looking for and will help inform the future designs of this vehicle.
We
Ooh,
can
they're
see some
starting to play
flap
with the
movement
flaps.
as the camera is moving around. That's what you're seeing there is the flaps adjusting. And we have a camera on one of the flaps there this is the view that you're seeing there. And you can also see the graphic in the bottom.
Starship is slowing down past Mach 1.
And call outs aligning with this. You can see the orientation of the vehicle
Wow.
starting to change. You can follow that graphic at the bottom of your screen. Again, that is why those flaps are changing. They control the orientation of the
This
vehicle.
thing's really flying.
Yeah, there are
Yeah,
four.
this is-
Go ahead, Dan.
Starship has started the
This is
subsonic
crazy.
belly flop, remains on a good trajectory.
I was gonna say
Except for
this is when things will start to get a little interesting. So this is when we're moving slower than the speed of sound. You can see that nose slowly start to tip down, and we're gonna try and maintain flap control the whole way. But we are just a couple minutes away from hopefully doing a landing flip. Landing flip
It's
and
really
landing
cloudy
burn
there,
if
though.
the flaps can hold
I don't know
together.
that we're going to get to see it.
Yeah, this is such a cool view. This reminds me of when we first performed the belly flop maneuver on the high altitude test with serial number 8. We saw the ship come back through, and I always wondered what it looked like from the ship's perspective, and this perspective, I think, helps inform that. We will be, as Dan said, we will be dipping down a little further and really be flying nose first. This higher angle of attack, we're intentionally doing it to stress those aft flaps, and that will help inform the limits of flap control in order to collect data for future landing profiles.
I mean, we're looking good so far. We've just got about 5 kilometers in altitude to go.
Wow.
We'll
Are you
ignite
awake,
the engines
Steven?
when we're still just a couple hundred meters over the ground. Do that flip
Starship is
and
passing
landing.
through 5 kilometers altitude, remains on
Steven.
a good trajectory.
I have a feeling this is going to look so cool as it passes
Steven.
through the clouds.
Obligatory shout out to the entire avionics team on Starship.
And there's that nose down orientation.
Oh, this is
Now
crazy.
the Raptor
Wow.
engines will relight and help flip the booster back up. This is a more severe flip given the orientation. The engines will shut down prior to the water making impact, prior to the vehicle making impact
Oh,
with
you
the
can
water.
see the ocean now.
Our ship is doing great so far. There's those engines relighting.
What a great reorientation
Oh, and there's the
by
buoy.
Starship.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
All 3 down to 2.
Wow.
In the water.
Starship has landed.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we have ship splashed down
Whoa.
in the Indian Ocean.
Awesome.
Some awesome buoy cam action here. Daylight
our buoy.
views.
Look at that. It's just floating on the surface. Oh, man, I think I'd go pick it up.
We really pushed the limits on shipping and made it all the way back down to Earth.
Wow.
I am
And it's just
shocked,
floating?
to be honest. I think many folks are. The fact that it survived all the way through while
gonna get
flying
up.
a lesser gen
Okay.
heat shield
Have a good night,
is
Steven.
just absolutely incredible. And
Thanks for
turns
joining.
out the vehicle had more capability than our calculations
All right. See
predicted.
ya.
And that is
Bye.
why we test like we fly.
Exactly why we do that. And those views were absolutely incredible to watch. Because of Starlink, we were able to get the views all the way down, as well as the buoys, seeing ship touchdown in daylight.
So cool. So cool. Now, we want to, unfortunately, wrap up the show.
Yeah, exactly. We'll say congratulations to our teammates at SpaceX and to everyone who supported the Starship program. And thank you to all of our future customers for your support.
We'd also like to thank the people of Cameron County, Texas, as well as the Coast Guard, the Federal Aviation Administration, the Government of Mexico, and the Australian Space Agency.
Now, be sure to...
Hey guys, I could take it from here. That was just incredible to see that splashdown. As you said, thanks to everybody that took such a huge part in this. Everybody here at Starbase that's worked on this program, just really pouring your lives into it. Great to see another booster lift off. We'll catch it the next time. Great to see ship in the water. New version of ship coming soon, so a lot more exciting launches coming up real soon here from Starbase. But I'll send us out this time. We'll see you guys next time.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Be sure to follow SpaceX on X for updates and more exciting views that we weren't able to feature on today's broadcast.
I'm sure there will be plenty of those. Now, thanks to all of you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Honestly, I look at, there's the booster burning, by the way. You can see in the distance that fire. That's the booster burning.
Don't give up.
Wow.
Don't give up. 13. Don't give up. We believe in you. That's incredible. And still to think that we're not even orbital yet. We're close. We're close. Just a little
by the
more
way-
push, and we're going to be orbital.
By the way, in terms of how fast SpaceX moved, you know what is already back on the resting positions? The chopsticks.
Oh, I thought you were gonna talk about me.
You're also in resting position.
So that was awesome. I really enjoyed that. Even though we didn't get to see a booster catch, the views of the Starship landing were incredible. I did warn my son that the sound of me trying to wake him up there at the tail end would be immortalized on YouTube. He didn't seem to have a problem with that, so there it is. You'll get to see a couple other views that SpaceX posted here of this Starship landing, so enjoy those. And that's it for this one. Looking forward to launch number 7 in January sometime. I hope I'm around and can experience that with all of the rest of you. Till next time, see you later.